With the preseason over, what do we actually learn about the 2024-2025 San Jose Sharks?
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, caretaker at the Reef, also the co-host of Western Conference Tuesdays on the Locked On NHL channel. I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Proudly part of the Locked On Network. We cover your team every day. And if you want to be an everydayer, all you have to do is just follow wherever you get podcasts, or you can watch on YouTube as well. And today we're going to try to take away some lessons from the preseason, including why this team is still going to be a bad team, guys. Like we can just put away any notions of this team surprising people, why the power play might be their best asset, and goaltending shouldn't be an issue for the San Jose Sharks. So before we get to all that, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right. Lesson number one is we finished the preseason. We're waiting for roster cuts. I'm not going to say anything about the roster right now until we know exactly who is a Shark and who is going to be starting the season on the Barracuda. So we're tabling that until Monday night. We get an actual fresh reaction to it based on who is actually on the team. So let's focus on what we learned from this preseason. And I think the first thing that we learned is this team is still a bad team, right? And they're still going to struggle in a lot of areas, and that's okay, right? This is, again, we are very much this season process over outcomes, like process over results. That is kind of one of the memos of the season, or one of the themes of the season is going to be process over results. And looking at this preseason for the San Jose Sharks, in 6 games at 5v5, they were outplayed a lot. And I know it's preseason, everybody has different lineups, et cetera. But again, like, we're going with the data that we have. And it's a small sample size of 6 games, and you have a lot of moving pieces and regulars in the lineup and not in lineup. And yes, I know all that stuff. But the Sharks finished, when it comes to Corsi, 4%. So that's basically how many shot attempts you take compared to how many shot attempts your opponents take. The Sharks finished second to last at 43.33 at 5v5 in their 6 games played. The only team worse is the defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers. So maybe the Sharks are just in good company. No, I think, but if you look at the other teams on the bottom, like Chicago, bad team, Ottawa, who knows what Ottawa is. Vancouver's down there as well, but I'm not worried about them. Philly, who knows with the Flyers, that they're a weird team. Colorado, they're a very veteran laden team. They're just gearing up for the regular season, but it's not a good sign, right? Where you kind of get outplayed for these big chunks of games, especially at 5v5. Looking at some of the other numbers, like the shot 4%, the actual shots on goal, the Sharks shots 4 percentage, second to last, 40.58. So with the Blackhawks, the only team worse. I think the Blackhawks did play 1 less game, and that goals for at 5v5, actual goals for, they were also near the bottom with 42% goals for. They had 11 goals for at 5v5 while giving up 15. The actual raw goals of 11, not the worst. That's you're kind of creeping into the early 20s in there, and you're not the worst in that department. So maybe again, as you get a bigger sample size there, but the 15 goals allowed, kind of middle-ish of the pack there in that area as well. And again, not every team played every bunch of game. Some teams got their games canceled. All that, yes, I understand all that stuff. So high danger chance percentage. So how many? This was 2 years ago under David Quinn's first season with Timo Meyer and Erik Karlsson just kind of going nuts that season. The Sharks were very, very good at creating high danger chances for. So far in this preseason, they struggled in that area. 35% high danger chances. Only the Sens were worse than them. They had 35 high danger chances and gave up 65 in that time. Scoring chances, kind of the same thing, where they were the worst at 36%. They gave up 162 scoring chances and 94. And again, this is all at 5v5. High danger, it's high danger goals for. They were near the bottom at 21%. So what does this all say? Basically, kind of what we saw a lot from last year, where the Sharks just struggled to get the puck out of their own zone and maintain offensive possession. And I know the game against Vegas, where there was large chunks of the game where Vegas was controlling and doing whatever they wanted. And the kids scored some goals at the end. It was a great moment. And that lineup was very much like an AHL, NHL kind of tweener lineup, right? Compared to Vegas's predominantly NHL lineup. So those numbers are going to skew it a lot. But we saw this kind of throughout the preseason, especially some of these Ducks games where the Ducks just kind of did what they wanted in these games. And especially where as the preseason kind of wore on and you saw more and more NHL lineups, you saw the Sharks still struggle to maintain kind of large chunks of time in the offensive zone and spending a lot of time playing defense. And then anytime they did get the puck, you basically had to get to the red line, dump it in, and make a change and kind of start all over again, which is, I think, one of the reasons why this team is still set up to struggle this season, just because you have so many young players and it's just a lot to expect for them to kind of transform this team overnight. And I 100% think they're in the right direction. The future is teal, et cetera, et cetera. But talking about this season only, I think especially out of the gate, as there's a lot of new pieces kind of coming in. You think about how many among the forward group, right? How many new players are going to be in the forward group? You have Tyler Toffoli, you have Will Smith, you have Macklin Celebrini. That's 3 in the top 6 right there. You have Alex Wenberg, you have Grundstrom, Delandria, Barclay Goodrow. You could be looking at potentially 8 or 9, real, guys on opening night who are playing opening night who weren't here last year, at least in the forward group. So I think there's going to be some time and then plus a new head coach. I think it's just going to take some time for this team to gel, right? And kind of find that chemistry. And you saw a lot of, in the preseason where passes were just off and just missing and stuff. So I think this team, those areas will get fixed as this team plays more games and just kind of builds up their chemistry. But I still think this team is just at a talent deficit compared to other teams right now, especially when you have kind of the hopes of the franchise on Macklin Celebrini and Will Smith, and those guys really kind of hitting the ground running. There's just a long road for this team to be a playoff caliber team. That doesn't mean we're not going to see improvement this year, and I fully expect this team to be playing. My hope is kind of going into the trade deadline and stuff, this team is just kind of playing that spoiler role where they're just hard to play against every night. They're competitive every night. kind of just making teams work for that win. That's kind of the hope and the goal for this season. But I still think this is going to be one of the worst teams. I'm not going to say the worst team just because of the Blue Jackets might literally be cursed. But I think this team is destined to pick in the top 5 this year, and that is perfectly fine, right? Again, we want to see progress. We want to see the young kids continue to grow and develop. I just think it's going to struggle. There's going to be a lot of nights where they just struggle to score goals, and you're going to, it's going to be like that a lot of nights. But again, process of results. Are the kids getting better? Is this team forming chemistry? Are you seeing your building blocks grow? That's kind of what you're looking for this season. So despite this team being bad, I still think the power play might actually be pretty good this year. So we'll get to that here in just 1 second. We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't a search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. So join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. All right. Before we get to why I think the power play might be really good, do want to thank you guys, of course, for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Proudly part of the Locked On Network. We cover your team every day. For your second listen, go check out one of the other amazing shows here at the Locked On Network. You have Locked On NHL, where again, I'm on every Tuesday with Seth from Locked On Wild. We talk about all things Western Conference. You also have Locked On Fantasy Hockey. You have Locked On NHL Prospects, as they're already looking ahead to the 2025 NHL Draft, or anything here in the Bay Area. Locked On Niners, I'm sure, are going to have a great time with the game from Sunday. Locked On Warriors, Locked On A's, Locked On Giants. So you find any of those podcasts wherever you find this podcast, or you can watch on YouTube as well. So the power play, I think, might actually be sneaky good this year. Couple things. One, it's just deeper, right? You actually have more players to be able to put out 2 good power play units, right? We saw guys kind of mixing and rotating as they're trying to kind of figure out the who plays well with whom. I think Jake Wallman's going to do a good job power playing their first quarterback. I still have questions about who's going to be the second power play quarterback, and we might get that answered when we kind of hear the roster, especially because of none of the other guys really leave a lot kind of to be desired. I assume it's probably going to be Henry Thrun if Muka Madulin or Cagnoni don't make the team. I assume it's going to be Henry Thrun on the second power play. It's going to be a very meat and potato style, but still, again, you just have more talent that you can put out there on this power play. You also look at the end of last season, and I know different coach with Ryan Warsofsky compared to David Quinn, but this power play was really good basically from the 1st of February on, and that was the Len line, Thomas Bordeleau, and then, Kalen Addison running this power play. I think they're going to be able, and you saw it already in the preseason, I think they're going to be able to scheme up a power play, and especially with the increase in talented players like Will Smith and Macklin Celebrini, and then Tyler Toffoli. You have a lot more pieces that can kind of work together and work off each other. And the best way for young players like to kind of really feel comfortable is usually playing on the power play because it's just so offensively focused. And I think that for Smith and Celebrini, they're going to both eat up a bunch of power play minutes because you want them to kind of get comfortable. You've seen how dynamic their passing is. I know Will Smith's shooting the other night on Friday night wasn't the greatest, but I'm not worried about that. I think as he gets used to playing in the NHL, those shots are going to start to go in. And I want him to keep shooting. Will Smith's a fantastic shooter. And I think he needs to shoot the puck more, to be honest. And that's usually a lot of young players. We saw the same thing with Eklund, right? Guys who maybe they just don't have the confidence in their shot yet. You'll see that confidence grow, especially once they kind of start hitting a couple here. So, but I just think Ryan Warsofsky and his group of guys are going to be able to coach up a good power play. The Sharks power play did score 6 goals in 6 games this preseason. And again, I know it's the preseason, et cetera, et cetera. But like, that's still like, I will take 6 goals. That was tied for 7th in the NHL. 6 goals so you had the Wild who scored 9, the Flyers had 8, the Sens had 7, and then you had the Panthers, Islanders, Leafs, and Sharks. I guess tied for 4th, to be honest, with 6 power play goals, and they didn't give up on shorthanded, knock on wood, which was definitely an issue with them, especially when they were running at the beginning of the season when they were having to run the 5 forward unit, and they were still trying to figure things out there. But I think this power play is going to be really good, and I think they're going to be able to withstand injuries, especially if guys go out, right? If Granlund or Wenberg or whomever kind of maybe they get nicked up or something like that, or get traded or whatever it is. I think the Sharks are just going to have a much deeper unit. And then if Mukamadulin and or Cagnoni break on to the roster as well, I think that's just only going to help the power play. We've seen Cagnoni in the preseason, and don't forget last year Mukamadulin in the preseason was dynamic as well, and we were having the conversations of should Shakir Mukamadulin start the season on the NHL, which we know that he didn't, but Mukamadulin I think will. Either one of those guys, if they're on the roster, is going to be your power play 2 quarterback, and I think this power play is. Again, they're not going to be one of the top units in the league, but can they be like a middle of the pack unit? And this team is just kind of like take advantage of your power, like try to keep it close at 5v5, take advantage of your power play opportunities, and then just rely on some good goaltending here and there and to try to squeak out some wins. I think that's going to be kind of their formula this season because, like I said, I don't think they're going to be able to control 5v5 very often. But I think they can win the special teams, and especially if the penalty kill kind of returns to form. And this segment isn't really about the penalty kill, but it should be better with the additions they've made on the bottom 6 and guys who are good penalty killers like Wenberg and Gaudreau and Nico Sturm. And I think Luke Cunnin, like Delandria, Grunstrom, like all those guys are good penalty killers. And then if Eklund and Granlund can chip in and Zetterlund chip in as well, like you have plenty of guys who can play on the penalty kill. I think the special teams should make a huge improvement this year for the Sharks. And I think Celebrini and Smith kind of being a huge piece of the power play and getting it to guys like Eklund, who we've seen as one-timer improve on the penalty kill, on the power play, Tyler Toffoli, who we know can shoot the living daylights out of the puck, Klim Kostin, who's got a solid shot as well, kind of working it around or just taking the shot themselves. I just think this is going to be a much more dynamic power play because of who is out there and the pieces available. So we'll go to the final thing I think we learned, and that's that goaltending should not be an issue for the Sharks this season. So we'll get to that here in just 1 second. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. And I know the Dolphins are on bye this upcoming week, but they're still going to find a way to hit the under because, again, until Tua gets back, just keep hammering the under because that team is they put up 15 points against the Patriots today. They won the game. I'm very happy. But still, you put up 15 points against the Patriots and had to basically squeak out a win at the end. Anyway, you can do all that over at FanDuel.com. All right, let's get to the goaltending. I kind of talked about this the other night when Vitek Vanecek, if he might be the number one goalie, and it's still a toss-up to me. And I think that's a good thing, to be honest. I think for the Sharks, it's going to be such a competitive room, and especially with Askarov, look like right there, kind of looking over the shoulder. I think it's just going to be so competitive, and these guys are going to be kind of they have to be on their A game every night. That's why I think the goaltending is going to be solid. And yes, these guys are going to be facing a barrage of shots again, just like we saw last year. And especially if the 5v5 play is kind of what we expect it to be. But I still think I think Vitek Vanecek, who's fully healthy, he looked great in the preseason against quality competition. That Ducks game on Friday night, those were, that was mostly an NHL team there of really young, exciting players like Leo Carlson and Cutter Gauthier and, their whole crew. I thought Vitek Vanecek was outstanding in that game, making 40 saves and 42 shots. Mackenzie Blackwood last night, I thought he played well with the NHL, AHL / roster in front of him against a very, kind of NHL heavy Vegas roster. I just think that these guys know that they don't have a lot of room for slip ups, because if one guy starts to kind of have a slump here, you might lose your job because Askarov, again, is the big thing that's just kind of overshadowing the goaltending. And, we still haven't even seen Askarov play yet. And he didn't play any of the Barracuda preseason games. I think they're going to be slow and they're going to be meticulous with Askarov, who's, they're expecting to be their goalie of the future. But I fully expect him to be ready for the Barracuda games this weekend and kind of make his debut. And if he performs well in the AHL, and I think this Barracuda team is going to be a much better team that we've seen, kind of watching the preseason games this weekend. Bstead looks really good. I think Podorowski is going to be good. I think this team is just going to be much more competitive night in and night out. And if Askarov can play the way we have played, he's going to be pushing, earning those NHL opportunities here soon. And I know everybody's competitive, right? Does Vitek Vanecek or Mackenzie Blackwood, do you want to lose your job to Askarov and potentially never get it back? No, those guys don't. That's why I think this is going to be, I think the goaltending is going to be very, very good from the Sharks. And again, this isn't one of the top units in the, we were talking about in, respect to what we've seen from San Jose, kind of expectations for San Jose. I don't think we're going to look back at the end of the season and be like, man, the goaltending really sunk the Sharks this year. If they had gotten better goaltending, they probably would have won more games. I don't feel like that's going to be the problem. I think the goaltending is going to be top notch most nights because I don't think they can afford a slip up, right? And Mike Greer is, at some point, he's going to want to see a shiny new toy in Askarov, who's been pushing for an NHL job the past 2 seasons with Nashville. He's got a lot of experience playing in the AHL. I know he's, was more than happy, not more than happy, but I know he's going to start the season at the AHL, but at some point Askarov is going to be ready to play NHL games. And if it's this year, if it's next year, it's going to happen here soon. So I just don't see those guys kind of get ready to kind of give up their jobs here right away. So, but I think, like I said, kind of going back to how these guys performed, pulling up the stats here on natural stat trick right now. Like save percentage wise, I know Blackwood's save percentage wasn't that great. Vitek Vanecek at 929 save percentage in 76 minutes, 3 goals against on 42 shots. That's at 5v5. Sorry, let me pull up all the strings here, make it better for the goalies. So Vitek Vanecek actually had a 944 in all situations, 51 saves on 54 shots. Blackwood in 3 games, he gave up 10 goals, so his numbers aren't as good there. But I mean, he did face 24 high danger shots in those scenarios, and gave up 8 goals there. So Blackwood has, though, like last year, his high danger save was really, really good. And again, right, you have to keep in context of who's in front of him, who he's playing with. I felt like Blackwood kind of got a little bit more of the children unit kind of teams, especially again Saturday night versus Vegas. But I think we've seen solid performances from this guys. Romanov had a really good in a game and a half. Romanov had a 942 save percentage with 198. Romanov's just good, guys. Man, Romanov's good. But yeah, I think Vanecek is looks like he might be back to pre-injury form. And I think Blackwood, even if the numbers aren't great right now, we've seen Blackwood over the last season with the Sharks play outstanding with a poor team in front of him. So I'm not worried about him in a preseason, kind of small, especially maybe coming out. Like, I'm not worried about him and his performance. So I just think they're going to be good. Good for the Sharks. Not like the best duo in the best tandem in the NHL, but we're just talking about comparably what we've seen. I don't think they're going to be a problem for San Jose this year. So that's going to be it for me today. We'll be back tomorrow to discuss the roster and decide if we all need to riot about Daniel Gushin or not. So make sure you guys are following wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. Follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Locked On Sharks. Follow me on Twitter at MyFryHole. Until tomorrow. Bye, friends.